Well, let's talk about this more now. I'm joined tonight by Behnam Ben Taleblu, Iran Programme Senior Director and Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracy. It's always good to have you with us, Behnam. Thanks for coming in. So talks between the US and Iran, reportedly, according to President Trump, they're already going on. A high-level meeting set for Saturday. What do you think could come out of this?
You know, it's very interesting, and pleasure to be back with you in studio. The Islamic Republic is running a full-court media press to deny, to right-size, to say that these are indirect talks, that at best the president had a misunderstanding. Some in Washington are trying to figure out if this is part of some kind of psychological warfare strategy the Trump administration is trying to employ against the Iranians, or simply that there may have been a misunderstanding between two old adversaries who don't talk much, like Tehran and Washington. But long story short is that President Trump has been remarkably clear, even back to the campaign period before term one, that he is seeking a deal. It's been the Islamic Republic that's been trying to buy time, inch things along, and kind of engage and disengage at a time of its own choosing.
Well, what do you think the likelihood is? And you've just said there, President Trump's been pretty consistent when he's been making these calls for a deal, that it would actually happen. And does Iran have much leverage left to resist this?
Well, for Tehran, it's all high risk, high reward right now, particularly after its proxies have been neutered, particularly after some of its ballistic missile attacks against Israel have failed, particularly after even it had counted on a transatlantic rift between Washington and its traditional European partners like the UK or the E3, for example. I think Tehran is gambling on nuclear escalation weakening rather than strengthening Washington's position over time. Khamenei, of course, and his regime is grossly unpopular, and he's betting that through selective engagement or indirect talks, he can kind of limp along and survive max pressure 2.0, just like he did max pressure 1.0.
Well, let's talk about some of the pressure then, because President Trump had said that he prefers diplomatic means as opposed to, he said, another option, inferring there very likely military pressure. He said that the United States doesn't want to do that. Do you think there could be pressure, for example, on Israel as a kind of backup plan there?
I certainly think Israel is quite keen to really show that there is at least a credible military option, particularly against some of Iran's proxies in the region, and also when it comes to some, not all, of Iran's nuclear and military facilities. I think right now an objective military analysis tells us that the Israelis can strike anything they want at Iran that is not subterranean, that is not buried. But some of the regime's bigger enrichment facilities and a potential future centrifuge production plant are underground, and that will require American military force if indeed they're going to be destroyed through military action.
I mean, looking at the American military force, we know that that campaign on the Houthis as well is ongoing. Do you think that ramps up pressure?
Certainly, if you're going to connect the dots in the region, we have to talk about the Shia militias in Iraq, which is this other domain that the Iranians have that have traditionally been used to attack the Americans, relieve pressure on the regime, and to continue to fight indirectly or via proxy. Just recently, some of those militias, at least 10 of them, according to Reuters, were willing to entertain the idea of disarming or dismantling themselves. Again, when you connect the dots of Hezbollah down but not out, Hamas down but not out, the Houthis under pressure, and many of these militias don't want to be under pressure as well. And I think Tehran, over time, if pressure is sustained, could come to a similar conclusion.
You were mentioning some of the comments that we've seen from Iranian state media channels, government sources, and so on. I just wonder what you think this also means for people in Iran.
Well, I think if we're going to connect the dots on, standing with the Iranian people, there was an interesting piece of legislation, not passed but introduced just last week, that could provide a potential third alternative between talk of engagement with the Islamic Republic and talk of bombing the Islamic Republic. And that's actually supporting increasingly protesting Iranians. You know, you have one of the most widest chasms in the Middle East being between the state in Iran and between society in Iran. And the Trump administration's term, the first go-around, was quite clear about, being willing to stand with the Iranian people in principle. Term two is, will they stand with the Iranian people in practice?
Behnam Ben Taleblu, Iran Programme Senior Director at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.